Hello, so this video is going to show you how to make a survivorship curve for Drosophila in our class. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is start to define your columns. So we are looking at time, and our time is going to be in weeks because every week we come in and we look at our Drosophila, and then we have to figure out essentially how many survive, so how many remain alive. So for our weeks, we're going to go with 0, 1, 2, and 3. And 0 is how many flies did you start with? So after we sexed the flies and you were given some, how many did you have? And so I believe the goal was to have about 30 flies. So for week 1, you had 30 flies. Now, when you came in for week 2, all of those flies weren't alive. So how many of those flies survived from week 1 to week 2? Let's say maybe you had 25 flies alive, okay? So then once you came back in the following week, again, how many of those flies were alive? Maybe you only had 7. And then in the following week, maybe you only had 2, okay? So that is the pattern. So this is what you should find in your notes. So each week as you're taking your notes, you're supposed to be writing down how many flies have survived, how many have died, and if you see the presence of larvae or pupa. Okay, so you're going to get this straight from the notes to write down how many flies have survived. So the next thing we're going to do is calculate the survival. So to do this, we're going to use the values that you have here. So this number is going to be equal to how many flies you have divided by 30 times 100 to give us a percentage. Okay, so in the first week 0, the starting point, you had 100% survival. Then when you came back, you only had 83%, then 23, and then 6. And so now these numbers are what we're going to use to graph. So if you copy your weeks, so that's the time for one of your graphs, and then you want to know the survival. Okay, and we're going to make sure that once you copy it, that you do values only. Now we're going to take this and we are going to insert our graph. And the graph that we are interested in is a scatter with lines, okay? And we're going to say okay. Now, we can change this. This is our survival curve. And now we know that this is percentages, so please be sure that you are adding axis titles, okay? So we need our axis here is going to be survival in percentages, and in percentage, and then our other axis is our time in weeks. Okay, so our time in weeks. And so when we're reading this, we can see that in just about 3 weeks we've lost almost all of our flies. So probably we can hypothesize that by week 4 we will be at 0. But this allows us to track how our Drosophila are surviving. And so this isn't misleading, we can change our units to make this 1 because we are looking at a 1-to-1. Okay. And so now that's your survival curve, and that's what you would turn in. And so this is the time and then how many are alive each week, created by the number that's alive divided by 30, which is the number you started with, as a percentage, and then graph that percentage. Okay, so this is what you would turn in so that we can see how many flies are dying on a week-to-week basis. Okay, so if there's any questions, please reach out before you have to turn this assignment in. Thank you.